Jimin was working in an office, a beautiful smile adoring his lips. The door opened and a big bulky man walked inside and whistled in a teasing way, gaining his attention. Oh, smiling and all. Let me guess. It's because of Ryan? Hyung, how come you know what's up with me every time? You are so transparent. It isn't that hard to read you. He shrugged, taking a seat across his desk. So, how did it go with wine yesterday? His smile widened at her mention, making Namjoon smile in content. She gave me a chance to prove myself, and I don't want to waste it. Your smile says it all. By the way, what are you going to do? We are going on a lunch date. He said, scratching his neck due to shyness, earning a chuckle from Namjoon. That's a good start. If you don't mind, can I advise something? Of course, you don't need to ask. I heard from someone that it's a good omen to kiss on first date. Jimin's ears turned red. Pink hue covered his cheeks. Young, what are you? I mean, how will I do it? He murmured lowly, shying away from his gaze. You need consent from Wyan. If she agrees, then take your chance. Jimin bit the inside of his lower lip. Just the thought of kissing her erupted goosebumps all over his body. His stomach churned, and he felt an unusual feeling. Namjoon chuckled. You look cute when you blush. Young. He whined, making him laugh out loud. Jamin sighed, standing in front of Ryan's home. He was here to pick her up for their date and also to talk to her parents. Gathering his courage and cheering himself, he stepped forward and pressed the doorbell. Few minutes later, the door opened by one of the workers. Heaving out another sigh, he moved in the living room. Her parents were sitting there. Her mother was reading a book while her father was staring at her with remorse in his eyes. Jamin's appearance gained their attention. He bowed his head as respect. Ryan's father smiled while her mother had a neutral expression. She wasn't enraged like yesterday. Jamin, please sit. He thanked him before taking a seat. Few minutes passed in silence, an awkward one. Jimin cleared his throat, finding perfect words to adduce in front of them. I won't. He was cut off by her mother. We know everything, Jimin. Ryan told us. He breathed out in relief. We don't have a problem if she is happy, but know one thing. If you hurt her in any way, I won't spare you this time. I have seen her being depressed and heartbroken. I am giving you a chance because her happiness lies in you. You better don't break her heart. Her threatening voice came out shaky in the end. Jamin kneeled down in front of her, reaching out for her hands. I know, ma'am, you are worried about your daughter. I was late in realizing my feelings for her, but trust me when I said this. I will never hurt her ever. I genuinely love her. Ryan's mother smiled, detecting the sincerity in his words. She patted his head. Their attention diverted to Ryan, who just came, a smile gracing her lips as his confession was heard by her. She was wearing an off-white dress which stopped just below her knees. Her hair waved transverse as she walked. She was looking like an angel. Jimin was staring at her while smiling like a lunatic, his eyes drinking in her every feature like she was the most beautiful creation of the Almighty. He stood up on his feet as she stepped more closer to him. She tucked her handstand behind her ear, feeling shy under his constant stare. She stopped 3 feet away from him. He was standing froze on his place, staring at her continuously. Her father cleared his throat, bringing him back to reality. His ears turned red due to embarrassment. He rubbed his neck, smiling nervously. Shall we go? Yeah, let's go. He turned to her parents. Do you mind if I take wine out for lunch? They both smiled slightly and shook their head. Jamin signaled wine through his eyes. She looked at her parents. Mom, Dad, I think you have things to clear out. Please talk it out before I came back. I don't like any disputes between you, especially because of me. They glanced at each other before nodding their head. Good, and bye. Sitting inside the car and securing their seat belts, Jimmy started the engine driving towards their destination. There was a comfortable silence between them. Jimin was glancing at her every now and then, smiling like a hormonal teenager. Wine, yes, you are looking beautiful. He complimented ever so smoothly, causing a slight red tint on her cheeks. Thank you. She looked outside the window, unable to meet his gaze. To subdue the silence, he turned on the radio. Perfect by Ed Sheeran started playing. A perfect song for the perfect person at the perfect time in a perfect cloudy weather. He started humming along with the song. She closed her eyes, listening to his melodious voice, the crisp breeze kissing her features, a content smile on their lips, their first divine memory of oneness. Jimin and Wine were taking a walk in a park after having lunch because Wine insisted. She doesn't want to go home this early. She was enjoying his company and this new side of him. Suddenly, Jimin's gaze traveled to a couple who was walking hand in hand, smiling and talking about something. He looked at Wine's hand and then back at the couple. Jamin bit his lower lip, contemplating whether he should hold her hand or not. He was low-key scared. What if her hand collided with his cheek? He shook his head, dropping the idea when he felt a warm grip on his hand. He looked at Ed to find her intertwining their hands. He stood his ground while Wine was still walking. She looked behind, confused when she didn't feel him moving. What happened? He shook his head, tightening his grip on her hand. He walked beside her. She wrapped her other hand around his biceps, leaning her head on his arm. His eyes brimmed with tears of glee, perceiving the zeal and solace that he craved his whole life. He brought their connected hands to his lips and kissed the back of her hand. I love you. He looked at her, his eyes searching for her. Her smile dropped when she saw his glossy eyes. She cupped his face in her hands, a worried frown forming on her face. Jimin, what happened? His lips curved upward as a tear finally rolled down his eyes. I am happy. Then why are you crying? I know I'm being dramatic, but I am crying due to happiness. He chuckled. She shook her head, gently wiping his tears. If you are happy, then smile, silly boy, don't cry. Can I hug you? She instantly wrapped her arms around him. You don't need to ask. He relaxed under her touch. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, inhaling deeply, her lavender scent instantly calming his senses. You really don't want to come in? Wine, I would love to, but I have some urgent work. Please understand. She smiled sadly and nodded. She turned around to walk inside. Wine, wait. She ran towards him, smiling widely. Yes. Wine. He was looking nervous and hesitant. What is it, Jamin? You know Namjoon Hyun? Your one and only friend? Yeah. He told me that it is a good omen to kiss on first date. She flushed. So, nothing, he was speaking nonsense. Okay, bye. She had his rest before he could walk away. Just say it. She stared at his eyes, her eyes pleading him to say it. Can I kiss you? He uttered ever so smoothly without shuddering like he was under her spell. Do it. She raised her head. He gulped and cupped her face, leaning slowly towards her. Their lips met, and his body tensed up. Their lips on each other without moving. Relax. She whispered against his lips, making him smile. His body relaxed. I love you. I love you more. They confessed, lips still connected and eyes gazing at each other's, mirroring the verbal confession. Closing their eyes, they moved their lips in sync. Her hands found his shirt and clutched on it as the kiss turned more intense. Feeling oxygen drained out of their lungs, they pulled back, bending heavily. Resting their forehead against each other, they breathed. A string of saliva still connecting their lips. Their cheeks flushed red. Vine's pink lipstick smoothed on both of their swollen lips. Opening their eyes, they smiled at each other and stood straight. He placed a smooch on her forehead. Take care, you too. Days rolled down the horizon, and it has already been 5 months since Vine and Jimin started dating. They enjoyed their time going on dates, long video calls at night, which always end up with Vine falling asleep and Jimin admiring her through the screen. She sometimes stayed over at his place to have a movie night. Jamie smiles more often. It felt like the void in his heart is now overflowed with the beautiful memories he made with Ryan. They both are happy, not because they are chasing their happiness, but because they are finding it in every small thing. When both the persons are happy, and then it was the best decision to give themselves one more chance. I am eating Ryan. Stop scolding me. If I don't scold you, then you will spoil your health. You always skip your lunch. That's a very bad habit. She scolded him from the other side of phone. He pouted, stuffing another spoon of rice in his mouth. Stop pouting and finish everything I send you. I have some work, otherwise I would have come myself. I miss you. We met yesterday. Exactly. It's been one long day. Oh, this trick won't work. You have to eat everything. Fine. Okay, I'm hanging up now. Take care and love you. I love you more. He smiled, looking at the phone screen displaying their pic on one of their dates. He savored the meal sent by his ex-wife, no, his current girlfriend. The love, the care, the respect she shows towards him made him the happiest man. But what felt like home is when she scolds him by right for his carelessness. Jimin was waiting for wine outside her house. He smiled when he saw her sneaking out like a thief. She came near his car and sat inside. What is this, Jimin? It's 2 in the morning. I was sleeping. She whined and he chuckled and kissed her cheek. Relax, baby. You will feel extremely happy seeing what I wanted to show you, he said as he secured seatbelt around her, stealing a bag from her. She scrunched her nose. Are you kidnapping me? Why would I do that? Aren't you mine already? Oh, too much confidence. He winked at her as he started the engine and drove off. Vine, baby, wake up. He shook her slightly. She groaned and opened her eyes slowly. She smiled. We are here, he announced. That's when she heard the sound of waves hitting the shore. Excitement rushed through her veins. Are we at a beach? He nodded. She squealed and got off the car and rushed outside without waiting for him. Vine's jaw dropped, looking at the view in front of her. It's so beautiful. Indeed, the view is beautiful. She looked at him to find him staring at her. She flushed and pointed at the sea. I am talking about this view. Nah, mine is more beautiful. She blushed and looked at the starry sky. Her eyes sparkled and face glowed in moonlight. Jimin was awestruck by her beauty. Let's sit there. He pointed at a big rock and moved forward, followed by Vine. He sat down on sand, leaning his back against the rock. He patted the space beside him. Sit. No, my clothes will get dirty. He chuckled and pulled her hand with a jerk which made her directly land on his lap. He adjusted her so that she leaned back on his chest facing the sea. His arms wrapped around her waist and she placed her hands over his. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, Jimin spoke. Ryan, why did you never ask me about my parents or family? My father told me that you don't have parents, and I didn't want to make you uncomfortable by asking about them. I was waiting for you to tell me by yourself. How did you manage to make me fall for you all over again every time? She chuckled, and again a comforting silence fell over. They abandoned me when I was 8. Vine gasped and looked at him over her shoulder. They left me on streets. I grew up in an orphanage. Other kids used to bully me. It used to be verbal abuse, but then they started hurting me physically. Amid so many people, I was all alone. When I couldn't take that anymore, I ran away from there. I was probably 14 that time. I didn't have a place to live or food to eat. I used to cry so much at my fate. Then I learned the biggest lesson of life. You have to wipe your tears yourself. Other people only make fun of you. I found a job and managed to get admission in a school. I somehow completed my studies. Then I decided to start a small business. That's when I met Namjoon Hyung. He understood me like unlike other people. That was a turning point of my life, and here I am. He sighed, completing his story while Wine had tears in her eyes. She turned around, still on his lap, and hugged him tightly. I am so proud of you, she whispered in his ear and pulled back, planting his long back on his forehead. You deserve all the happiness of the world. I just want you. Why juggle? You already have me. Give me your hand. She forwarded her hand and giggled when she saw him sliding a paper ring in her ring finger. He gave another paper ring to her and forwarded his hand. You want me to make you wear it? He nodded and Wine happily slid it on his finger. It's cute. I made these when I was in the orphanage with the hope that when I'll have someone who will love me or someone I love, these rings will bind us together for forever so that the someone won't leave me like everyone did. Wyatt smiled slightly and pecked his lips. Now we are bound for infinity, she said, intertwining their hands. I have something more for you. He reached for his pocket, taking out a small purple velvet box. Wine looked at him with curiosity. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful, vibrant butterfly pendant. He took it out and hooked it around her neck. It's ravishing. Wine, I know our marriage is a bad memory for you. I was a jerk husband. I made plenty of mistakes. I want to amend all of them. I want to be the reason of your smile, your happiness. I want to be an ideal husband for you. I want you for eternity. I want to marry you. Will you marry me, Ryan? Ryan flicked his forehead, making him wince. Is it a no? Silly. It should be a statement like you will marry me, Ryan. You have rights on me just like I have on you. Is it a yes then? Ryan sighed and smashed her lips on his, pulling him closer by his collar. The moon and the stars smiled, witnessing two hearts finding home in each other. A crisp breeze blew past them, blessing them togetherness for forever. The waves rose up with a roar, cheering for them, a secret between them and the universe.